Very much. This session is on the AECB CarbonLite Training Centre, run through the courses. Apologise on behalf of Trish Andrews. She's our Training Centre Manager. She was due to be here today to take this presentation. I'm going to do a stand-in. Hopefully I do it justice. But I'm not going to talk for long. I'm just going to quickly run through the courses that we have available. I'm going to hand over to two more capable people. We're going to be handing over to John Butler, as one of our CarbonLite authors, and then Catherine Hunt, who, as a CarbonLite certifier, can talk you through her journey. And then we've got a special guest star for the last few minutes, Diane Hubbard, who'd like to talk to you about a new course that is in the offing on airtightness and a few other things, but a special guest star at the end. Excuse me, I was trying to shout to get everyone to come into the room. I'm a bit croaky. Right, okie doke. So as I say, we're just going to run through quickly the offer. Oh, we've gone right back to the beginning. How did that? No. It's all over. Ah, no, there we are. Got there. This is the trouble with having lots of different USB sticks. No, that's going backwards instead of forwards. We'll just have to do it manually with the mouse then. So, say, just a quick run through of the CarbonLite Training Centre, the courses that we offer. We're very fortunate, and this is one of the reasons why Trish is not here. We've just been awarded some funding from the DESNZ pot of money, and because it comes with some strict deadlines, she's back at the ranch frantically onboarding students to get these students on board with the funding. So apologies on her behalf. So all we'll do is we'll just have a quick little run through. Let me just talk you through a roadmap. We've got quite a suite of training courses, more so than you might think. And we've also got a roadmap of how to take students through. So we come in at entry level, medium level, and so forth. So we're looking at developing people as we go through as well. Probably one of our, well, it's certainly our oldest course, what might we want to call it our bread and butter course even, is the CarbonLite Retrofit Foundation course. And this is the one that partial funding has just been awarded on. So students can come on it for very minimal money now. And it's been running for many years, and it's been cited by the government in one of their papers as an important tool in terms of training, excuse me, and towards net zero skills. It's been running for many years, being updated at the moment, because as you can imagine, as I was alluding to earlier, when you're coming to inception in 1989, things are changing, and we're updating the courses all the time. It is currently being updated to become a little bit more bite-sized as well, rather than one just a block of training course. So we will be looking at launching bite-sized modules as well, and then this is another way of hooking people in, hooking students in, and getting them invested before they go on to the longer form courses. So here we are. Here's some of the new additional models I referred to. So we've got things on PAS 2035, as I'm sure I don't need to tell a lot of you with all the updates and etc. And we're also looking at things like building with timber. We've got new case studies as case studies come on board. So really just to keep it fresh and up to date. We've added to that, the reason it's called foundation, it's not entry level as such, but it's foundation because it works towards the coordination course. And that is a level 5 course. It is accredited. It's also got partial funding available now. What happens is that you come through the CarbonLite training with ourselves, and then we've partnered with a delivery agency to deliver the final level 5 for you. Here are some of the modules that we work through on that coordination course. You know these far better than I do. I'm not a technical person, so I'm not going to read through them, but it's just to give you a flavour of the sort of modules that we're teaching on that course. One of our newest courses is the Understanding Building Physics courses, and we're very pleased that this has also come up for partial funding from the DESNZ pot. And this one is taught interactively and online. The previous ones are self-directed, self-learning, but this one's taught live online, and we've had some really good feedback on it. I've seen some of the videos actually of the tutor balancing bits of wood in water tanks and so forth. It's a lot of fun, but people, you can use it as an introductory course, but I have heard a couple of architects that have been on it saying, these are things that actually I should have known, and you know, so they're pleased to have gone on it as well. So it's just one of our new courses, been very popular. 10 hours, there we go. Let's click through. Some of the modules that are covered in the building physics course. Again, some of these things we've been talking about today. We've heard speakers talk about thermal bridges, we've heard them talk about ventilation, moisture, and so forth. But we're looking at the holistic approach, the whole building, how the building stands up. So, say one of our most popular courses. Just a little testimonial there. And then finally, we have our embodied carbon courses, or pH ribbon. We have, as I mentioned earlier today, we have a pH ribbon software and a carbon calculator software to work with PHPP to look at embodied carbon. And Tim Martell, who's our technical manager, is also the author of this software. So needless to say, he teaches the course. So again, that is an online taught course. So the pH ribbon software is fully compliant with RICS 2. It's been rewritten, meets all the carbon standards, LETI, etc. So we do run courses in that, and that course is booking at the moment. So if you're interested in that, speak to Tim. He can sort you out on that. He's, I think he's on the building tour at the moment. Here are some of the things that you'd be looking at on the pH ribbon course. So it's a lot to do with whole life carbon, as you would imagine. That is the driver on it. So, but by all means, catch up with Tim, and he can support you through that. We've got the man himself, so he's designed the software and he's teaching it. So I say very quick run through, because I'm no expert, but I just wanted to give you a flavour of the sort of courses that are available, hopefully to pitch at different levels for people to hook in as they will. But I'm going to hand you over to people that are far more qualified than I am to talk about CarbonLite training. So first up, we have John Butler, who's one of our CarbonLite tutors and authors, and he's also a CarbonLite certifier, and he's just going to talk you through his journey through training. Thank you.
This is a fairly lightweight presentation, which is probably good for the post-lunch slump slot. So yes, this is me. My own journey to being involved in the CarbonLite course started, well, originally doing a self-build retrofit to try and make a 1960s bungalow, low energy and low carbon, without really knowing what I was doing, having to learn quite a lot on the job, and through that process basically realizing how much I didn't know. And then from that I went and did an MSc at the Centre for Alternative Technology, which did a really good introduction to the sort of big picture of sustainability and starting to get into some of the nitty-gritty of kind of building physics and moisture transport and a bit about retrofit. Came out of that, ended up being a SAP assessor for a while until that destroyed my soul, essentially having to kind of, as I think Jonathan Davis puts it, help people build the worst building they're legally allowed to. And that's it. Then did the PHPP training, which led me into sort of everything I'm doing now. And then overlapping with that, I think I did the CarbonLite Retrofit Foundation course to fill in all the holes in my knowledge in retrofit. And knowing that retrofit is a key area that we obviously need to be doing a lot more of, and a lot more genuinely low energy, low carbon retrofit. And then into consulting, and then Trish and Sarah asked me to get involved in the update of the AECB CarbonLite Retrofit course. So that's, I'll come to that in a bit more detail in a moment, but that's quite a big project, still ongoing, and also now being a certifier and modeler for the sort of relaunched AECB standards. So yeah, being course writer and tutor, there's a whole load of us, by the way, I'm just one of them. It's quite a big team, I think, of people involved in the update. But it involves writing new material. For me, it's been providing some illustrations. There are quite a lot of quite old, literally faded, scanned things from years ago. So we've been kind of updating all of that, checking and updating all the existing material. The reason for that photo is it's just quite a lot of reading through the course material, trying to find all the kind of little errors and the bigger errors and work out which bits of the course just no longer belong in it. There's been a bit of that, and where there are holes and things that need to go in it. Again, this is part of quite a bigger team. And then also supporting students who are doing the CarbonLite course at the moment. The reason the photo is an empty cup of coffee is they ask quite difficult questions, and I usually, there's no point me attempting to answer them until I've had at least one cup of coffee and got my brain working a bit more. So yeah, it's a combo of, I think teaching generally is a combination of different types of question. It's sort of the questions that you've preempted, information that you think the students will need, questions you haven't preempted and that students then ask you, and questions that you ask the students. But it's a lot of questions. And it's a lot of thinking, which is quite good. Why I like being involved in it is it makes me have to constantly refresh my knowledge of what's involved, and means I have to keep up to date and just stops me forgetting some of the nitty gritty of how things should work. But the student queries that we get through are a combination of sort of specific practical applications of things. So on the course, it will give an example of something which is a sort of fairly specific circumstance, but something to talk about, say, moisture transport through foundations. And then the students will want to know, often relating to specific projects that they're working on at the time. And from a tutoring perspective, we sort of have to be careful not to slip into consultancy, but just use it as a teaching opportunity. So it's more sort of, rather than going, this is the answer to this, it's sort of explaining the concepts that they need to consider, because that's the whole point of the course really, is making sure people understand the things that they need to be able to do informed retrofit and improve the state of a building and make it long lasting into the future, as well as lower energy and lower carbon. And then there's also quite a lot of sort of maths related questions because there are quizzes at the end of each module, and some of those involve kind of the calculations that you need to do that often we get into the habit of just relying on spreadsheets to do, but the course very sensibly makes you do them manually to make sure you understand what's actually happening, and then you can spot errors more easily. And these ones are really good for refreshing my mind of how these things work. Although my entire career now involves essentially maths, or is very large maths based, whether that's PHPP or AECB CarbonLite or whole life carbon calculations, there's a lot of maths. I'm not naturally adept at maths, I think. I probably have dyscalculia, but in a way, I think I've learned the fact that I've had to find ways around that and become very methodical in working when it's math and just sort of working through the steps, making sure that you've gone through all the steps is actually really helpful when teaching other people, because it helps me work out where they've gone astray and making sure they're accounting for all the things. It's often like some of the examples might be that their kind of area to heat flow calculations are wrong, and it's can be as basic as you sort of look at it and go through what they've done and go, I think you've missed the fact that this building has 3 floors rather than 2. And other times it's that it's more complicated equations and they've just missed a step. But it's really useful for me going back and working through those because it refreshes my mind. But I think that also helps me support them well, because I have to break it down into the component steps, which is what they need to do to get through them. And for modeling and certification, it's essentially a lot of the same process. It's the same questions you're asking, but very project specific. And it's working with the architect and with the client to find the sort of the best solution for specification for specific buildings, essentially. And that's the part of it I really enjoy, I think, is that collaboration with clients and with architects. So it's not just doing some calculations, spitting out an answer and going, here you go. It's the using the PHPP, using whether you're looking for PHPP for passive house standard or for AECB CarbonLite standard. It's using that target as a tool to lean into all the different bits of the specification and making sure that they're compliant with the standards. A key thing I was going to say actually that I forgot with the questions and with working with clients towards the CarbonLite standards particularly, is part of that process is essentially still educational. You're working with clients who aren't necessarily familiar with the standard. They know that it exists and they understand the basic principles of it, but you need to make sure that everyone involved in the project understands what's involved in getting a building to that standard. And a crucial part of that is making sure that that is a good building, or that what you've done at the end of a retrofit particularly will stand up over time and won't have issues. A key thing that sometimes gets missed in the early stages is the kind of retrofit condition and risks report, which is a very, very essential part of this retrofit standard. It's often things that clients and architects are just sort of instinctively doing, or they're thinking about each individual detail in respect to that, but the report just makes you have to look at the overview and the detail and make sure you've accounted for everything. And often people aren't sort of aware of that need, and it's a key thing to kind of get across quite early in the process. But yeah, modeling is sort of partly all that and certification, partly just a massive file handling exercise, particularly once you get into the site. It's construction evidence. Anyone who's been involved in any certification projects, either for AECB or Passive House, will be fairly familiar with this. Just keeping track of all the different bits of information you need and containing them in a kind of coherent package. And then obviously dealing with the PHPP. It's all based heavily around the PHPP, but I think my point is that is the tool in the middle of it. It should never be the kind of be all and end all. And just very briefly, 2 projects that I've been involved in certifying. On the left was a CarbonLite retrofit project for Lawburn Housing Association, led by John Gilbert Architects, particularly Barbara Lancher was sort of responsible for all of that. On that project, I was more just sort of quality control at the end, checking the information and checking the calculations. All the planning and all the specifying had been done to an unsurprisingly excellent standard by John Gilbert. But it was a pilot project, so they were certifying 1 house and 1 bungalow to then roll out the process across a whole estate, which I think is what's happening now. So it's going to have quite a big impact to everyone who lives on that estate, which I think is brilliant. And on the right is a new build certifying project. This one I was originally involved just for whole life carbon calcs. And then sort of once I started talking to the clients about what they actually needed, it quickly escalated to me being their kind of Passive House PHPP consultant, and ultimately certified that one to CarbonLite new build. It sort of slightly missed the targets for Passive House, and then the AECB target still provided them with kind of recognition of the effort that they had put in and the high standard that they had got to still. And they were sort of aiming to use mostly low carbon materials. And that's, I think, it for me. Thank you.
This is me. So I'm one of your students, John. So my name's Catherine Hunt. I am a director and also architect at Niche Design Architects. We're just a small firm up in Ilkley in West Yorkshire, almost North Yorkshire. But we sort of, I've done this presentation to tell you about my journey and how we got introduced with the AECB and how we did our training and how it's affected our practice. So does this work, or is it just the mouse? Right, okay. So is it just a click? Oh, has that worked? Yes. So as I say, it just takes one. And this is a project that we had up in Grassington in North Yorkshire, and it was a client that came to us who had had a retrofit assessment done by a company called Leader in Leeds. Roger's here from Leader. There he is over there. And they had a retrofit assessment done, and they wanted to do up this lovely lovely house just in the edge of Grassington. It was a solid wall construction. And we're right, okay, let's get our teeth into this. We primarily do one-off sort of bespoke residential, but we found we were getting more and more retrofit at the time. So we thought, well, we better do a bit of CPD on this one. And it all started with this, and I think Ecological Building Systems are here today as well. So we did our CPD to look at sort of the insulation that we needed to do it, and actually leader had recommended, and because we'd never actually worked with wood fibre before, so it was kind of new to us, because I suppose like a lot of architects, we'd been doing what we thought was the best thing when actually we'd been doing it wrong. So we want to do the best job we can, and we were introduced to this CPD, and it was actually an eye-opener for us, and we realised very quickly that we needed to up our game a bit and find the right approach. So from this, we found the courses at the AECB. I think it was introduced at the end of the CPD, actually, and something like that, so long ago. So we looked into it, and from that time, we went to the AECB. We did some training. So I did the training first, and we've rolled it out through our company. So Jim, our colleague, he's also done. So I did the retrofit course in 2022-23. I thought, well, that's not enough. That's not enough. I need to know more. So I then did the retrofit coordinators course, which went into it more deeply. It was all a Moodle-based platform, really easy, some really good support, because I had a lot of questions, and a lot of it, some of it I knew, some of it didn't know, and it was about sort of answering those queries. They always came straight back to you, so it was great. But it was a lot of time. It was a lot of commitment. But I knew that in order to sort of progress my career and change the direction of the practice, because we were a practice that was, before sort of the COVID crisis, we were probably quite sort of generalised, and we could see more and more retrofit coming into work, and we knew that this is the way that we wanted to go. And since then, we've done the retrofit course, coordinators course, and I did a certified PHPP course, because I had the idea that I really did want to bring the AECB retrofit certifier role to the practice, because we knew that that would be one way to actually bring the quality of work that we wanted to achieve, and to bring the quality control into the work that we were doing. So that they were the three courses that I actually did. Now, the PHPP course I did was with the Passive House Trust, and that enabled me to get the modelling expertise. But I think they've changed it now. I think you have to be a passive house designer to become a certifier. So I'm one of only a handful. But my colleague, actually I've got a slide later, Jim, he has gone on to do his passive house designer course, and is now an AECB certifying retrofit and new build. So after doing those three things, I then went on and did the top-up course for the retrofit coordination and risk assessment course. So I could also be a retrofit coordinator, although I haven't delved into that yet, because we're so busy at work. So that's how I got there with the certifier. So what do I think about the AECB courses? Well, obviously, I think they're excellent. So they do introduce you into it gently, and they are very accessible. So although I come from an architect background, you don't need to be from an architect background to be able to get through the coursework and actually to understand that. So we have actually recommended it to contractors, to other professionals in the industry. It's easily accessible on the Moodle platform, so you can do it at your own pace in the time that you've got to do it. And I think you've got access to it for 12 months, if I'm correct. So you're not, if you are busy, you are able to fit it in within that year. So I think you can actually extend it as well. You can extend it if you can, yeah. So, and then there was testing at the end of the module, which ensures you take on those key outcomes with some great support and lots of resources to be able to access. Sorry, I haven't got a clicker. Is it that one? No, it's not working. Can't get it to work. Is it me? Yeah, sorry, don't know. So being a retrofit certifier, now there we go. So we have our first retrofit project starting on site in October, which is a bit scary. But we do have quarterly CPD sessions, and there's always people there on demand there's a forum to go onto to ask questions. And the one thing that I've found from that is that it's a very sharing community, and we're all learning. And without asking questions, you're never going to find out how to do things, or you are always learning from everybody. So never be afraid to ask a question. And I'm always asking questions all the time. Like I think Michael said, was it Michael? I don't know. We are a very collaborative community, and I think it's the only way that we're going to get better is to engage and share. So this is Jim. I thought I'd introduce a picture of Jim. Jim's here today, but the whole introduction to the AECB has led us to help support Jim to become a passive house designer, which was always one of his things, one of his goals that he wanted to do. So he's now a passive house designer and also an AECB certifier, which is exciting. And we're going to be doing our first project here, which is our start on site next month with 5 Rise contractors. So we're all going to be learning a lot together. And hopefully we'll have a big, nice new plaque on that house by the time it's finished. But that's going. There's no chimney, by the way. We got rid of that. So, yeah. And I think I'm nearly there. So, and we've got another one that's starting. It's going out to tender soon. So, yeah, that's a different type. It's done in phases. So that's a step by step, which will also be another learning curve on top of it. So that's it, really. I didn't really know what else to say. So never stop learning. That's the main thing. So, yeah.
Thanks very much. Some really good testimonials there from tutors and students alike. Just before we go on to our next session, we've got an interloper. We've been talking about we're always adding new courses. We're looking at PHPP course to add in the near future. And I know Trish is talking with Diane Hubbard, our next speaker, to look at a further course. I won't spoil it for you. I'll let Diane speak. She's a little bit of an addition to the programme. So I'm afraid, Diane, you only got a couple of minutes, but I know she can do it. She can do it.
Yeah, there's a challenge. I can do it in 2 minutes. Okay, so I too have been a beneficiary of the AECB courses, and I can't speak highly enough of them. So can I say that before I start? I'm also a local group leader for the AECB. I chipped in earlier on when the conversation was around older buildings and not assuming performance of buildings, and it's a mistake that lots of us make when we're looking at retrofit. It's important to understand what that starting point actually is, and probably more important when you're looking at relatively shallow retrofits where you're not going to be able to afford to do everything, and you've got to really know where the priorities are, and you've got to avoid unintended consequences from the retrofit. So you really have to know where you're starting, and the easiest way to do that is by testing the building. The way that I test buildings is a combination of air tightness and thermography, and that way you can look at air tightness issues, you can put a number on it, and you can look at particular issues from a thermal bridging and thermal performance point of view. But the problem is there aren't many of me around. So what I've decided over the last couple of years is to write a course that covers this particular topic, that allows us to effectively benchmark buildings and not work from assumptions. It's fine if your building is average, but is your building average? You really don't know. So I've written this course, and I'm at the point where I'm ready to start delivering it in cooperation with the AECB, though that's yet to be talked about, but I'm ready to start delivering. And I'm serious about this because we are not doing the number of retrofits that we should be doing because people lack confidence. And part of that confidence is not knowing where the building is to start off with. So the course is called Baselining Buildings. It's a combination of practical testing of the building and building physics. So a big chunk of it is practical hands-on testing, so you know how that building is performing. It's a combination of air tightness and thermography. It's a 4-day course. There is an optional 5th day at the end of it where participants can qualify as a level 1 air tightness tester if they wish to, but that's an optional additional element. As of this week, it's NOCN accredited, And we are currently talking to the CITB about it being eligible for level 3 funding under their employer's levy. But that's yet to be confirmed. I have a meeting on Monday, the final meeting, hopefully. So how can you lot help me, basically? I'm looking for 2 sorts of people from this room, because I think this course has the potential to really transform retrofit, whether we're looking at past 2035 stuff where we know that people aren't actually testing the buildings pre-retrofit, and it says that they should be, through to single household dwellings. So what I'm looking for is organisations who may want to host a course. Because of the practical element of the course, we need 3 buildings, 3 archetypes to test as part of it. And these organisations I'm looking for are third sector organisations, so either charities or KICs or something of that form. So probably already delivering programmes related to retrofit, and they see that this gap is there. And I'm seeking funding for those courses to be delivered free of charge to those organisations. So if you're one of those, or you know of one of those, if you can speak to me afterwards, that would be great. The other thing is that I'm also going to be training individuals as part of this, really topping up on those courses, because they're probably, the organisations won't be able to fill them. So if you are, professionally, whatever you are, I don't mind. I will take architects, I'll take anybody, so long as they have a good level of underlying understanding. So if you're an individual who thinks this fills a gap in your current experience or knowledge, or you could find it of use, if you could speak to me afterwards, again, that would be great. Thank you very much for your attention.